Kia ora, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Returning to Wholeness with Catherine Pars Light and Blair Styra. As we step into the energy of the new year 2026, this episode opens a powerful space for reflection, renewal, and conscious growth. Together, we explore themes of personal evolution, self-observation, relationships, productivity, belief systems, purpose, and the shifting currents of both individual and collective consciousness. In this conversation, we speak to change not as something to fear, but as something to meet with awareness and responsibility. We explore what it means to find your voice, to observe your inner landscape honestly, and to take full ownership of the life you are creating, even while navigating the complexities of the world around us. While Blair and I are here holding this space, we want to acknowledge that this episode is truly guided by our Ascended Master Tabaash. We find ourselves listening, observing, and receiving, allowing the wisdom, insight, and energetic transmission to lead the way. Our role is to be present, open, and in service to what wants to come through. And we invite you, our community, our collective, those who have been drawn into this space to do the same. So sit back, relax, breathe, and allow yourself to receive this nourishing conversation exactly as it meets you. Also, if this episode resonates with you, we ask that you help us carry this message forward. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with those who may be ready to hear it. These conversations matter. It is time for us as a collective to rise, to remember who we are, and to step fully into our power. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And welcome back to Returning to Wholeness. Kia ora, Blair. How are you?
Kia ora. Happy New Year, Catherine. Nice to
Happy
see
New
you
Year
again.
to you too.
Oh,
Merry
cheers.
Christmas and all the things.
Absolutely, yeah. Compliments of the season to everybody.
Yes. Hopefully everyone's had a beautiful summer. We've had some gorgeous weather up here in the Coromandel.
Yes, yeah.
Same
Well,
for
down
you,
here in
Daniel?
Wellington, it's not been like that.
No.
No, today, I must admit, today is definitely a beach day.
Yes, yay.
But no, it's been pretty much like winter almost. But yeah. But that's Wellington. So it happens
Yes.
like that. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah. So it's good to be able to talk to you again. I really love doing these things with you. This is really, really good, and I think so important. With everything that's going on at this particular point. So let's kick into some of your questions, and
Okay,
we'll see where we
great.
go here. Yeah.
Okay, well, so I guess I guess we're in a new year from I think it's the Chinese that are talking to it being the year of the horse. Do you know much around that, Lee?
No, I don't know much about Chinese astrology. Sorry to. Yeah. So I accept mine. I'm a rat. So,
Oh yeah, I'm the rat too.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Spooky.
Yeah.
So, but I'm a metal rat, born in the hour of the dragon.
Okay.
And I have no idea what that means, but I was sitting in a dentist waiting room once, and I just picked up this magazine, and it was talking about that. And I went, "Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, what does that mean?" So, but yeah, it's. Actually, I do know something about the reason why they have all the animals, and it had something to do with Buddha.
Okay.
And apparently Buddha was sitting underneath the tree, and he was projecting his vibration and energy. I might have this completely wrong, but this is what I've read. And then all these animals were drawn towards Buddha, and so the rat hopped on the back of the ox, and then it was the rat who reached Buddha the first time, you see, rather than all the other animals. So, typical of rats, isn't it? Let's find an easy way to get here. So,
We'll use all the strategies to get to number one. It's clever.
completely.
Clever.
Yeah. But I'm also a Libran rat as well. So it's all about the sort of weighing up all the factors and, you know, considering things and looking at your strategies and all that sort of stuff, basically. So, but
I think Librans are great. They're very clever, very well rounded.
well, I like to think so. Yes. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. So here we are, another year, and I don't know about you, but I can really feel we've turned some sort of corner. So the energy of 2026 feels much lighter than what we've all been experiencing in the previous year. And it's just a whole totally different vibration.
Mm,
And, you know, when we move into new vibrations, then I think we need to be quite conscious of how we establish the story for ourselves as individuals, you know, that matches up, you know, with that vibration. And, you know, the more that we involve ourselves in our spiritual growth, then the more we become conscious of ourselves as formulas. And so it's about really the meeting of formulas, the formula of 2026 and the formula of what we ourselves are as individuals. And
mm.
I can really feel the essence of that, the presence of that. Even now as I'm talking, I can really feel the presence of spirit around,
Yes.
and it's just been so consistent. So there's a deeper sense of who we are as souls, and therefore we're reaching up for, you know, that light energy more, and it's actually infiltrating more easily. And I mean, other people may be having other experiences in regards to this, but I think it's definitely changed. The frequency has definitely changed.
I think you're right. I think anyone that isn't experiencing that right now, it's only a matter of time, and they will be.
Of
Right? It's
course.
just
Yeah,
still releasing. It's still a little bit of
yeah,
that,
yeah.
shedding part, but
Yes.
it's definitely to come, if not now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, for sure. Look, I know Tabaash wants to talk a lot today, so I can feel him sort of nudging and say, like, stop with the gossiping and just get on with it. so, I'll just bring him through and just see what unfolds. So have a really cool time. And you know, I'll no doubt come back at the end. So I'll see you later
I
on.
hope
Okay.
so.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, see you later. Okay, bye-bye.
See,
Bye. Bye.
see you soon.
Hello, Catherine. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Nice
Blessings
to
to
see
you.
you.
Blessings. Thank you so much. I'll just have some water here. When you, as human nature, discover that you are higher in your nature before you are human in your nature, you establish a way of positioning yourself where you first begin to observe very, very consciously what you're participating in.
Mm,
And when you become an observer of this, that's when you become more conscious of the role you yourself are playing in that.
mm,
Because it always comes down to, who am I in this position? Who am I in these roles that I'm actually playing? Many
mm,
humans get involved in other people's roles and other circumstances, etc.,
mm.
which is almost like a way of diverting yourself away from yourself. And human nature is very good at creating a lot of diversions that take them away, both subconsciously and consciously. This occurs.
Yes.
Self-development, of course, teaches you to be conscious of your power.
Mm,
When you're conscious of your power, you relate to everything differently.
mm,
And 2026 is an interesting frequency, because for those who have turned a lot of lights on and are really more in light of themselves, you become more conscious of the very much the fact that you really do walk alone.
Mm,
Even though you have people in your life and families and friends and jobs and all that sort of stuff,
mm,
you're aligned to that, but you're not attached to it.
mm,
And for perfect relationships, when you have a situation where you're no longer attached to it, you actually create better relationships. You create a better relationship with each other. You create a
mm,
better relationship with the world itself. And so your
mm,
satisfaction, first and foremost, stems from yourself and your understanding about, who you are and, you as the power, as I have said in the past. When human nature gets so caught up into the need to be involved in a relationship or the need to be involved in life, this
mm,
is where it gets complex, because people are start looking for whys and wheres and reasons and purposes as such. Whereas when you move away from that state of consciousness and into the state of just living, then you become very, very honest with what your connections are, whether it's thoughts, people, attitudes, or whatever. It's about that. And I think that this particular time in human history, it is very much about, and I don't mean this in a negative way or egoic way. It's like one needs to be well connected.
mm,
And that concept means I need to be connected with the vibrations, with the frequencies, with the experiences
mm,
that truly align with the way I am connected within myself.
mm,
And so I think it's actually quite essential as people go through 2026 to be conscious of, well, how do I walk alone with myself?
mm,
And as you focus on that, then as you are well aware in your present circumstances, it's very easy to get distracted by other people's situations and the responsibility that you have in those situations, and also too in the need to find a solution,
mm,
and also the fear for the future sometimes.
mm,
And of course, when you get involved in that vibration, well, then that locks you into a particular formula. And
mm.
and when you lock yourself into that formula, then you will attract to you frequencies that match up with that formula.
Yes.
And it doesn't take away the situation, but it changes the way you are involved in it.
Mm,
And that's where I think that's an important thing for humanity to be conscious of at this point. What is my involvement in life?
mm,
Emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, etc., etc. And in the way that I'm involved, is that involvement productive? Not just
mm,
for myself, but for other people that are in my life or circumstances in my life, etc. So
mm,
therefore, you seek for the productivity of your existence. And I think productivity is a good word for 2026. So the power is there, and so it's not to be found. So
mm.
when you acknowledge that it's there, then you, in your thoughts and your words and your deeds, you produce the results. You produce the outcomes of things through, your way of paying attention to self.
Mm,
And so to make life a productive year for oneself, then one needs to know when to walk away from thoughts and patterns and circumstances and situations that are not producing good results. And it
yes.
doesn't mean walking away completely from it. It just means I'm walking away from that way of thinking or that
Mm,
way of feeling or that way of being, or I'm walking away from that story or those
yes.
conditionings and so on and so forth. And with this power that is there of life, then it becomes, the word that come to me is a surge of energy that
Mm,
goes through everybody. And of course, everyone's positions in their beliefs determines exactly what they take from that particular surge of energy.
mm,
And so when you are understanding that you're the God, you're the power, then you have 100% all that power, all that energy.
Mm.
And for those who are still playing around with concepts and the ideas of it, well, they'll take whatever percentage that their belief system's determined.
Mm.
And so I feel it's not so much an aim or a goal, but more a state of consciousness about, let's be 100% this vibration, this energy. So if I am, then I'm able to observe my circumstances always from a position of great power.
Mm.
And then what you do is you attune into the circumstances. And that's how you're able to, as you people see, read the vibration. And in the reading of the vibration, your sensitivity allows you to open up to what to do or what to say or how to guide it. Or just the way you wear that vibration can often just calm the frequency down. You know,
Mm.
I look at humanity at this point and they get so much into the vibration of their panicky frequencies. And
Yes.
when they throw that vibration out, then of course, imagine what it must be like to just walk through your day surrounded by the frequency of panic or stress
Mm.
or anxiety. And of course, so many people do that. But you do
Mm.
have choice.
Mm.
But for that choice to be recognized, it is total responsibility for where you stand within yourself. And this is, again, it's not, find a process. It is more to stand still for a moment and put to yourselves as individuals, how can I do this differently? That's more simple and more basic
Mm.
and less complex. How can I do this in a way where I'm not allowing my human emotions to overwhelm me?
Mm.
And as I have stressed before, human emotions are not negative, but there are some human emotions that are counterproductive to you.
Mm.
And so as you gain more enlightenment of self, then you're able to observe your own emotional reactions, responses to life, and then sift out the ones that are going to give you better results.
Mm.
And so as you stand in your own vibration, I believe that you're able to observe very easily the productive emotional energies. And then it just comes down to a matter of how you direct that energy through your own intentions.
Mm.
And it's a day-to-day thing. It's not trying to find time through the day to remember to do this. You're God. You don't have to remember to do anything.
Mm.
And you don't have to find your power. And
Mm.
humanity's wanting to change things, wanting to move forward. And that is definitely happening. But
Mm.
then I still feel, as I observe, that there's a great deal of thinking around people's where they're still waiting for something big to happen, or waiting for some sign to occur, or waiting for some permission to be given, or something major to alter.
Mm.
And that will never happen in those ways. Life is not a waiting game. That's a human thing.
Mm.
But then when you look at life from a God perspective, there's no waiting game. It's always about productivity. It's all about making good choices. It's always about being conscious of the power that you are and how you're directing that vibration in your mind, in your body, in your spirit. I feel also about 2026. It's an energy of collectivity. And so the frequencies are lighter because there are more souls who have turned on their lights.
Mm.
So, of course, they're emitting signals of that light, and that's aligning to other souls who've done the same thing.
Mm.
So the collective consciousness of of human nature has shifted to many higher degrees. So, of course, in doing so, then your availability to each other collectively is actually greater. So, and this is something I think is very imperative to remember. You live in a small community, so you understand the necessity for the community to pull together,
Mm.
when it's actually necessary. So if you think about this in worldwide concepts, it's rather like that too. It's how do we pull together to be able to disperse this power in a
Mm.
way where the game is lifted in a greater way.
Mm.
And so if each individual who has awareness can be conscious of this and look at themselves first because, your physical, your mental, your emotional, etc. Well, that's a collective consciousness.
Mm,
So when you are collectively aligned in all of those facets, then you're able to function in a supreme way. And so when you function in that supreme way, then you have the good alignment between the supreme intelligence, that is the God frequency, and your soul intelligence and your human intelligence. So when you get this combination going on, then you are the power. And if
mm,
more people can practice this, then the alignment that is connected collectively establishes an even greater force of power. And you have seen this in circumstances, whether it's in communities or individuals and families or whatever, when you've seen people pull together to assist, to guide, to make things happen. And the unfortunate thing for human nature is that they tend to only do this when there's some form of disaster, or some form of problem, or a time where we have to rally around and support and all that sort of stuff.
mm,
And so now it's about, let's live like this always.
mm,
Let's live collectively, so that therefore we're able to change things even more. And with all the dismantling that's been going on for the last, well, since 2020 pretty much, then
mm,
people have been very involved in the collectivity of that emotion and that vibration. But that's finished. That's closed off now.
mm,
So you've had these 5 years of dismantling, these 5 years of honesty, of disclosure, of total transparency. These 5 years of, for those who are unaware, looking at themselves, who am I? Where am I standing? How am
mm,
I doing the driving? For people who have been on their spiritual road for a long time, this is actually quite a challenging time
mm,
because, and I'm not meaning this in a negative way, but you can get locked into a complacency when you think,
mm.
oh yeah, I'm a spiritual person, and I do this and I meditate and all that sort of stuff, you see, thinking that I'm there, and I don't have to do this so much anymore, et cetera, et
I've
cetera.
got this.
Yeah, yeah. So you're always evolving. You're always needing to keep questioning who you are, what you believe, where you're standing in your life. But it's different because originally you did that because there were literal emotional and human changes that needed to be made.
Mm,
But then once you've made those shifts, the dynamics change because now it's like, oh, well, I was using my power to resolve, but now I'm not.
mm,
Now I'm using my power to advance. Now I'm using my power to evolve. Now I'm using my power to make greater choices from a position of
mm,
power, not from a
mm,
position of weakness.
mm,
And so when you do that, then of course, this whole sense of responsibility becomes more evident. And it's, again, take responsibility for who you
mm,
are, what your life is, all your circumstances.
mm,
And that's difficult for those who are in, rather traumatic situations. But even then, I would say, take responsibility for the way you are involved in that energy and
yeah,
those circumstances. And that helps you to feel supported in what you feel that you may have to go through.
mm,
But also to be, will use your awareness. What am I aware of? From what makes sense to me. How in my awareness, what does standing alone really mean to me? So actually, I'll put that question to you. So you're an aware being, I believe. So therefore, what does standing alone mean to you at this point in your life?
mm. What does standing alone mean to me at this point in my life? It's just standing in my sovereignty, standing in my awareness, and standing in my true self, being my true self.
Yes.
Did I answer that correctly?
Well, you answered. You said, "Well, I'm not your examiner," so it's just a question that I put to you. You see, so I mean, maybe that's a question you should put to yourself. Did I answer
Mm,
that correctly? Because
mm,
it all stems, from yourself.
mm.
And so this is really important. The answer you gave was good, but it was
Yeah.
also important the fact that you said, "Did I answer that correctly?" As if you still in a position where you're doubting yourself and doubting your
Yes.
answers and doubting your potentials and possibility.
Yes.
And so this is really important because no one in guidance and God and spirit, etc., is not your examiner.
Mm,
And humanity's often still sees it in that way, feels it in that way.
mm,
And I think humanity has to perhaps step away from the concept of looking at each life you live like it's some big lesson that you're supposed to be learning, and some exam that you have to sit and etc., as opposed to, oh, well, I'm alive, and I have choice, and I'm here to experience. And otherwise it's just like being at school forever.
yeah.
And so you got to get to a place where you realize, well, no, I graduated a long time ago.
Mm,
And now it's about, I'm living with the responsibility of who I am and my thoughts and my words and my deeds. And therefore what I'm given is, I'm given lots of choices and given lots of options.
mm.
And okay, so just an example. I always use Blair as an example. So
Lucky Blair.
beautiful day here in Wellington, and he's got this time off, and he's been doing lots of things around his house to repair things and to tidy things up, and so there's quite a few list of things, you see.
Mm,
And so he was having a meditation this morning, and then he thought, "Oh, such a nice day, after the podcast, maybe I'll just go to the beach." But then his brain started kicking in and going, "But
mm.
you could do this, and you could do that, and you could do this," you see. And he could feel himself sort of tug of war between, having this leisure time, and then, well, I'm gonna go up to Auckland, I'm spending some time up there, I could go to the beach then, all that sort of stuff, basically, you see. So he decided, right, productivity, using that word
Okay.
again. So he thought, "No, I've got these things I need to do. Let's get on with it." And so he was given choice, and it wasn't like he was having an argument with himself,
Mm,
but it was like he was weighing up all the factors. What would be the most productive way I could actually be today? And there may have been times where his own higher nature may have said, "Oh, it's really productive to go to the beach today."
yes.
But instead, the feeling he had was, now get these jobs done, and then that's something that you tick off the list. And
Yes.
and I think, again, getting back to collectivity, when humans can be more productive without getting sidetracked. "Oh, I'll do this later," or "Such
Mm-hmm.
a nice day," or da 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 da. It's about, no, what do I have a feeling for?
Mm,
And I think that's another good point to make for where everyone is at this point. What is the feeling I have for my day
mm.
or for the way I wish to approach the situation, as opposed to what is the idea that I have? Because when you're
Yes.
doing it through the feeler part of you, that's when you're engaging with your higher nature and, of course, the supreme nature of source.
Mm,
And humanity needs to function that way because it becomes less manipulative.
yes.
And so when you move away from the manipulation of energy, through human emotions, it changes the dynamics of everything. And I
Mm,
suppose one could observe the planet and all the way that people are being directed by your governments and things. There's so much manipulation going on
mm,
all of the time, and that itself creates a collective energy, which, of course, humanity buys into,
mm,
because they've created a security around those systems and those powers. And
mm.
then that's why humanity, I feel personally, put up too much with the imbalances, because you do have voices,
Yes.
and it has been proven through human nature and through human history that when you find a bigger voice, then changes can come about. But to find a bigger voice, it doesn't have to come through a conflict, like a big, political revolution or all those types of things. It's about, okay, well, united we stand. So we
Yeah.
get back to that collective vibration. And I'm
Yeah.
not talking about people signing their name and, making signatures on protesting or whatever they call it. And so instead, it's about each individual aligning themselves to a frequency which collectively people feel it makes a difference, and it does work.
Mm.
And but it's about the way you organize these things,
Mm.
because of course people still, oh, I can't do that today because I've got to go and do this or I've got to do that or whatever.
Yes.
And so people have the right intentions, and I see so many people do this, and I've talked to so many different clients over the years who every year they saying to me, oh, this is what this year's going to be, da 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 da, and then they come and see me, and I say, well, look, you made these dedications to yourself, but you did not follow this through. Oh yeah, but oh yeah, this happened and that happened and da 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 da, da. You see, and look, when you're God, you can't make excuses. And that's why, in fact, what I would say to your audience is look at your life and ask yourself, what are my excuses? What excuses am I making that I know this is absolutely ridiculous that I'm doing this because I know better and I can do better?
Yeah.
Don't go, why am I making these excuses? You're just doing it because that's your story. And so it's about realizing, well, but I can change this
Mm.
and I have choices.
Mm.
And of course, I have access to all of life, but also I'm supported and guided and directed, by all the sources of life as well.
Mm.
And so, I'm not
Mm.
judging, you live on earth, you people make excuses. But this is not a time to divert yourself away from what's available to you. And if you
Mm.
keep doing that, well, then, you suffer.
Yeah.
You suffer mind, you suffer body, you suffer spirit. And I mean, what do you feel about what I'm saying to you?
You're 100% right. Absolutely. I can't help but nod and agree.
Well, you have to say that.
No, I don't.
No, I know you don't. I know you've got perspectives and opinions.
But I do agree. And I think I'm just, listening into how we're all feeling here on productivity wise. I know that we're in a year of, we call it the number one, a year one cycle, which is all new beginnings. It's all about, charging forward. I feel like it's very much, it's not a year to kind of sit back and just put your feet up. I feel like we
No.
really do feel like we've got to, we've just got so much more
Mm,
energy coming through, Tabaash.
mm,
How does
mhm.
that?
Yeah, look, when you say that, you have to remember that all of you, whether you're conscious of this or not, you're all in a position of renewal.
Mm.
So you're renewing Earth, you're renewing your systems, you're renewing yourselves, you're renewing the roles that you play on this planet. And renewal is
Mm.
such an essential circumstance for evolution. You have to renew. You can't not
Mm.
renew. And of course,
Mm.
humanity, they lock themselves into a certain road that says it will always be like this. And of course, that's not feasible for one to travel in that particular way. And and
Mm.
and and I know humanity creates a security around concepts and stories and circumstances and so on and so forth.
Mm.
And yet the renewal now, it's a different form of renewal because it has to be based on what I was speaking before about that collectivity.
Mm.
So there's been a lot of separateness.
Mm.
There's been a lot of focus put on individuality and independence and I can live without this and live without that and so on and so forth, you see. But
Yes.
but 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 of course, humanity, I think, realizes more and more that you have to live together, that you can't live separately anymore.
Mm.
And when you have renewal, you're renewing the way of thinking, renewing the way of feeling, renewing the belief systems. You're also renewing the way belief systems are established, but also are practiced.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of diverse belief systems on this planet, and they're not wrong. But of course, like so many belief systems, they can be, using this word again, manipulated.
Yes.
And therefore people get manipulated and brainwashed into believing, the literal sense of what this is, because so much in spiritual beliefs and writings are almost like hidden codes. And so therefore, it doesn't necessarily mean in a literal sense what it represented, you see. And I'm just thinking about, the Adam and Eve story, and so Eve takes the apple and bites into it and suddenly, gains awareness, in a human sense, basically, you see.
Mm.
And
Mm.
and and so of course, that's just symbolism. And I think the world is perhaps focusing a lot on symbols as truth as opposed to what is the truth. And the truth is, of course, that which pulls everybody together to walk
Mm.
together and
Yeah.
therefore establish respect for whatever the belief systems are there. And in a way where each belief system is compatible and each belief system is supporting, the collective vibration to establish that productivity that we talked of before.
Okay.
And so I mean, I know humanity talks about, one belief system, but the great thing about Earth is that there's such diversity.
Mm.
But it's not to look at those belief systems as one is better than the other or more powerful than the other or more supreme than the other.
Mm.
That's been proved through human history that that way of thinking adds to conflict. And as you people have seen recently in Australia with the thing that happened in Bondi Beach.
Oh
And
yeah.
and and so again, one has to remind oneself that, these tragedies happen, but these tragedies are also important to learn from and evolve from, and ask oneself, about the community consciousness, again, about the collectivity, but
Yeah.
also about people's reactions and responses. Because you cannot judge a whole belief system based on the action of, say, two people.
Exactly.
And but of course that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
And so there becomes this, ripple effect. And again, that tells you more about people's reactions, people's responses, tells you more about themselves and as
Mm.
individuals and what they actually believe.
Wow.
And when people can understand in the bigger perspective, then again, it brings a community. It in a proper way manipulates the vibration for everyone to walk together, as you humans talk about solidarity.
Mm.
And so you're all in a good space, but because of the energy of renewal, you need to be conscious of, and the words that come to my mind is, get the job of life done, and do it in the happiest way you can, the most joyful way you can, the most communicative way you can, the most collective way that you can as
Mm.
individuals.
Mm.
And so in doing so, you're definitely playing your part. And of course, there are always others who will have bigger voices and will play bigger roles.
Mm.
And not everyone needs to do that. And I think there's pressure on people believing that they should have a bigger voice. But I would say leave that to those that's a natural thing to
It's
do.
lit. Yeah.
And if you feel your voice is just a quiet voice, then that's just as productive.
Mm.
And so, it's just, as I have said so many times, do what you can, how you can, in the way that you can.
Mm.
And in doing so, then you are able to forge your way, and invariably that will blend into all the other ways as well.
Mm.
And so it's I mean, there's a ways of being a part of collective without actually being conscious that you're doing it.
Yes.
And you do that just by living your life. in the best way that you actually can, knowing this is good enough. I am good enough. I am capable enough. But then as an individual, look to your own qualities, look to your own voices and express those and allow oneself to. And that's actually something I felt I would want to say to everybody. Find your voices, speak your voices, your mind ones, your body ones, your spirit ones, you know, uh, make good choices to extend your capabilities and your possibilities. Explore more if you can, experience more, learn more, develop more in your mind, in your body, in your spirit. Change so that your changes are adding to this greater energy of renewal. And as you add this energy of renewal out there, then you, of course, will benefit from what you're going to receive, an energy that balances everything out. So you've got to be able to be receptive to that vibration. So you want to ask me any questions?
Oh, every time you say that, I go blank, and I have all these questions right up until then. I guess my question around this renewal process is that there's going to be a lot of what I feel confusion. So there are a lot of people, because we're so used to a certain way, and because this is, we're kind of, how do people deal with that confusion? How do they clear their energy field?
Yeah. No, what you speak of is something that's, not brand new. I mean, this energy of confusion has been very prevalent over these last few years, and I think humanity has been needing to ride that wave, which of course they've been doing. And as you ride that wave, you observe and you find solutions to these situations. And so rather than look for, you know, the ultimate sort of answer to a situation like that, instead it's like, well, change is the constant. So if we live in awareness, then that's how you become more conscious of what to do or what to think or how to organize that situation. So I suppose the answer is live in your awareness and not wait for, how we're going to cope and how we're going to be organized, etc. And it gets me back to the collective consciousness and the community energy and people supporting each other and being there for each other's energies in the way that is comfortable to them. And so I would say see things through. If you start something, walk your talk. That's the words of human say, you know and but again, I think humanity has to remember also, with change comes power. So
Yes.
it's not always about confusing times. And I think humanity gets too focused on that and almost subconsciously uses it as a bit of an excuse. Oh, well, we're not quite ready for this. It's a very confusing time. We still have to settle and all those sorts of stuff, you see. And
Yes.
okay, yeah, that's true. But then there's also a lot of productivity and a lot of good things. So I would say pay a lot of attention to the good things that are happening and the power that is available and the nice things, etc. As opposed to always, it's such a confusing time and I'm feeling this energy and the impact of this and the impact of that, you know.
Yeah.
And see again, this is living in separateness. When you're God, you just wouldn't even consider that at all. So because you're just always of the light. You're just always of the light.
Yes.
And that will mean different things to many people. And so if you can all in your own ways walk in your light, walk in the light, then you get on much better. And so I suppose that's another answer to that question.
So, I find a lot of the time, I mean, I guess that's a lot of people's goals is to walk in the light. Then we have, there's experiences that take us away from ourselves, that take us into, and from other people that I've spoken to, it's about moving away from yourself so that in order to know the polarity or to know how to come home to yourself. And what do you think about that, Tabaash? How would you talk into that?
I would say always what I was saying before, know when to walk alone, stand alone in your own vibration, in your own frequency. Find a moment where you're not disturbed by
uh,
everything that's going on around you,
uh,
and find your alliance within the oneself.
uh,
And then from that position, it allows you to be a better observer of external energies.
yes.
And then it just comes down to your strategy for that moment or that day or whatever.
Uh,
You know, it's what I was saying to before. If I can't change the circumstances, then I have to look at ways of changing the way I'm involved in the circumstances or involved in the way I think about the circumstances. And
yeah.
and and you know, because it's not that you are powerless, but there are times where it is not in your vested interest or others or in your power to
Uh,
actually change a situation,
uh,
because
uh,
one realizes that there's some things that need to be seen through or lived through, but
uh,
also you realize that when it comes to individuals, that's people's journey,
uh,
and you can't divert them away from their journey. You can't turn them into something you would prefer.
no.
And also too, if you're part of a collective consciousness, then
Uh,
you know, just think about where you live, you know, when you had all those storms and things like that, and you know, community had to come together,
uh,
you know, and it would be very remiss of someone to put their hand up and go, oh no, I don't want to do it this way, I want to do it this way instead. Well then, you know, it's not going to actually produce good results. So it's to also know when to be a natural part of an experience,
uh,
even if it's a collective sort of scenario. You know,
uh.
it's about allowing oneself. This big thumb appears suddenly, and so on the side. I don't know what that was. A thumb going up like this suddenly appeared on the side of the screen.
I know, and I saw bubbles on my side of the screen, and I was thinking, I see that.
Well, that's very interesting. So maybe God has given us a thumbs up or something. AI is approving.
Oh,
I think humanity has stepped away from a lot of fear. It's still
yes.
there,
Yeah.
but people aren't buying into it as much as they have in the past,
Uh,
because people, well, I think quite frankly, humanity's just sick of it. You
yeah.
know, they're sick of the fear, sick of the conflict. You know, I've had enough of this. You
Uh,
know, and that's good when people start challenging vibrationally the circumstances that are going around.
uh,
Because, you know, when you get enough people who are really throwing out this energy of enough's enough,
uh,
you know, we just don't want to do it this way anymore.
uh,
And I think that's a really good state of consciousness to arrive to individually as much as collectively, because it is a very impactful sort of concept, you know. And I know there's many of your listeners who've reached places in their lives when they've even said to themselves, I've had enough of this, enough's enough. I
uh,
don't want to do it this way anymore. I'm not going to do it this way anymore. You know,
uh,
so when you have that type of concept thrown at you, then that's when the vibration aligns to the supreme frequency, and you can get this
uh,
surge of frequency of energy that you feel really supports, you know, your energies. I like humanity to think of themselves as mastering who they are,
uh,
and in the way of mastering who they are, you're mastering your intelligence, you're mastering your vibration. And then when you feel an alignment, then thoughts, actions align with that. And so
uh,
so it's always first mastering what you are. And then in doing so, then you create systems, then you create structures, then you create productivity, which produces the most extraordinary results. And every individual is capable of doing that. But of course, one has to be in a certain place of awareness to be able to understand this and then establish your own strategies and structures. So whilst you humans, I talked about last year about years as frequencies as opposed to being a beginning and an end.
Yes.
So you've moved from 2025 vibration. You're still on the same road. So the road hasn't changed, but the vibration has changed. And so as individuals, are you still carrying the vibration of 2025, or did you leave it behind? Did you have your closure on that vibration and frequency? And so your aim now is, of course, to align to the vibration 2026.
Yes.
And again, you don't have to go into big meditation. You could just sit there and quietly say, okay, right, as God that I am, or whatever, I choose to align to the vibration of 2026 to be the best version of myself that I can be. And I have formal closure on the energy of 2025. So be it. So it's good to make statements like that.
Yes.
So making those sorts of statements, it's like enough of enough stuff. No, I've had enough of this.
Yes.
So know when to cast off that which has absolutely no relevance to you anymore. And that can mean a lot of things to people. But and I'm not saying be silly about it. You have to use your common sense when it comes to change and evolution and advancement, etc. I know people sometimes just walk away from a situation, and because, and I've talked to lots of people who've been in scenarios where they just couldn't cope, so they just walked away. But the thing is that, remember, wherever you go, you're going to find yourself. So if you walk away from an aspect of yourself that you haven't made peace with, well, then that self is going to keep following you. And then at some point, it's going to say, well, I'm still here, It's like this funny story about, this woman who was making dinner for her husband, you see. And so, and he just decided that he just wouldn't, he just walked away. He walked away from his life there. He walked away from his family, everything, you see. Anyway, he comes back like 30 years later or something like this, and knocks on the door, and she's there, and she just looked at him, and he walks into the house, sits down. She goes into the kitchen, puts a plate of food on the table. Here's your dinner. And it was the same dinner from 30 years before that she kept. Obviously not in a good state like this.
No.
And yeah. But then there's an old
But it
Zen
just,
saying, which is,
yeah. Sorry, I was
so I
just
was just
processing what you
about to
just
quote
said.
something. And
Please.
oh yeah. And it's a quote that says, when you're enlightened, chop wood. When you're after enlightenment, keep chopping wood. And so it's, you just live. Suddenly when you gain an enlightened position, it doesn't mean that everything has to change. It of course invariably evolves, but you don't have to dramatically alter your life. But of course, the more you understand how everything works, then the less you want to become involved with circumstances and situations that don't serve you. And whether that's people or jobs or whatever, a lot of people have found that out. But use your common sense. Yes, you may have gained enlightenment, but it doesn't make sense that you give up your job, because how are you going to make money?
Yeah.
And so it's there to direct you. The light is there to direct you, with new ways of thinking, new ways of feeling, whatever. And I think humanity needs to understand the importance of your human patterns and your human routines and your human structures, but from a position of light. And so you don't always have to change the mind, the body, and the spirit circumstances. You could stay exactly where you are, and that's how a lot of people who live in extreme adverse conditions, they cannot sometimes change their circumstances, but they change the way they are with it. And of course, some don't. So of course they will suffer. But for those who do, then they activate within themselves a form of acceptance and a form of coping mechanism that supports them through whatever the journey is. And so that's why, there are so many people that live in poverty on this planet. And yes, they wish things to be better, but they probably won't get better in some situations. So what those peoples do is that collectively they create an energy that supports that situation. And so, but I mean, the interesting thing about this is that it doesn't have to be that way. And the only reason that that's the way it is because there's too many degrees of separateness. And the super wealthy countries and the absolute poor countries, and so it doesn't have to be that way. It's mismanagement. It's a mismanagement of human consciousness. And of course now, it's about the management of human consciousness from a position of light that changes things. But the old draconian methodologies, who want to stay the superpower energy, as we'll call it, then they don't like that. And that's just ego-based. And that's the energy of manipulation in a counterproductive way, which has been going on through, human history. And so if you're going to manipulate, then it's about how to manipulate in a highly productive way. And so we get back to that word again, productivity. And so I'm going to go in a minute, but as individuals, please look at how you can be most productive, first to yourself as individuals. And then in doing so, then that's where you'll wear that vibration, and that will have an impact on other people around you and the world that you yourself are living in. And then as you gain more from your productivity, you become more conscious of perhaps a bigger role that you would like to play, if that feels natural to you. And if you wish to pursue that, then investigate. And don't just go diving into a situation. And if you don't feel the need to have a bigger voice, that's not because you're not an evolved being. It's just that's you as God doing it that way, and that's okay. And so don't allow don't put yourself into unnecessary pressures in the way of thinking, the way of feeling, the way of being, because it really isn't needed at all. And of course, you got everything available to you. So access it because it's there for you. On that note, I'll bring Blair back.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Been a joy to speak to you again. Oh, that's a pleasure. Yeah. And we'll be talking again, I know. So I'll bring Blair back, and blessings to you all for a highly collective and productive year. So bye for now. Oh, hello.
Hi. How are you?
Oh, good. Yeah, good. Yeah. Always full of energy after I channel. So, which is good.
Well, that was amazing. He came up with a lot of great wisdom for the year. So it's very exciting. I should have been taking notes. We'll just have to
you'll
keep
have it on
replaying
here,
it.
so you just have to go over it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you for inviting me again for this
Oh, thank
sojourn,
you.
and look forward to talking again. And look, have a super day. So
You too. Have a productive day. Have a very productive day, as Tabaash was talking into.
yes,
It's a very
yeah,
productive year, isn't
that
it,
is
Blair?
that is my intention. That is my intention. So, all right,
Yes.
lots of love.
You
Okay,
too.
bye for now. Bye
Lots
bye
of love
bye
to
bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
As we begin to close the space, we invite you to take a moment to notice what has landed for you, what stirred, what softened, and what shifted. This conversation was never meant to give you answers, but to remind you of your own wisdom, your own responsibility, and your own power. As always, while Blair and I are here as guides and witnesses, we acknowledge that the deeper current of this dialogue has been led by our Ascended Master, Tabaash. We trust that whatever you were meant to receive has found its way to you. We encourage you to carry this awareness with you beyond this episode, into your relationships, your choices, your productivity, and the way you observe yourself and the world around you. Change begins in awareness, and awareness is where wholeness is remembered. If this episode resonated, please support this work by liking, subscribing, and sharing this podcast. These conversations are part of a much larger collective shift, and your engagement helps this message reach those who are ready to hear it. Together, we are remembering, rising, and stepping into our collective power. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this community. And until next time, may you continue returning to wholeness, one conscious breath, one choice, one moment at a time.